Post 1. Am I the jerk for refusing to forgive my brother for dating my girlfriend and for skipping family dinner? I run a small catering company that grew out of a rented church kitchen. Most of my weeks look the same. Prep list taped to the fridge, a van that smells like citrus cleaner, Saturday pop-ups at the farmer's market where I sell breakfast empanadas, and a spinach feta puff that regulars ask for by name. My younger brother Tyler has floated in and out of those scenes for years. He is the kind of male who lights up a room and also sets off a smoke alarm. I am the kind of male who makes sure the fire extinguisher is still charged. For the last 2 years, I was dating Jenna. She met me at the market. She liked that I knew which farmers grow the good tomatoes and that I carry a mini first aid kit in my apron. She did not like that I say no to last-minute plans because pastry dough needs chilling. Tyler liked Jenna because everyone likes Jenna at first. She is bright and speedy and always knows a cheaper way to find parking. I thought the three of us were fine. Tyler would swing by the stall, charm customers, and leave right before it was time to mop. There are a lot of small signs that only look like signs later. Tyler started texting Jenna memes that he said were too funny to send to the group chat. Jenna laughed and said he was harmless. He started standing on the customer side of the table instead of coming around to say hi to me. He told a story at dinner that made me sound rigid for refusing a last-minute order that would have crushed my staff. Jenna said I should be more flexible if I want to grow. I told myself I was being touchy. I made a new batch of empanada dough and added a pinch more salt. 2 months ago, I saw Tyler and Jenna at the back bar of the Riverside Tavern. I was dropping off a tray of mini sliders for a trivia night special. The kitchen door swings open onto the back bar. They were sitting close. His hand was on the back of her chair. She tilted toward him in that way people tilt when they are past friends. I stood for a second, holding a tray, and felt the heat go up my neck to my ears. I set the tray down, told the bartender where to find the chipotle mayo, and walked around to the front because I did not want to make a scene in a place where I sell food. I said hi. They both did that startled blink and then overcorrected into big smiles. Jenna said she had been meaning to talk to me. Tyler draped an arm over her chair like a stage direction. Jenna said she and Tyler had been hanging out a lot. She said we had grown distant and that she did not want to hurt me, but she had to follow her heart. Tyler said the heart wants what it wants and that I would understand in time. He said it like a line he had practiced. I asked Jenna when she decided this. She said it had been a few weeks. I asked Tyler when he decided my girlfriend was his girlfriend. He said love is messy and brothers are forever. The bartender, who knows me because I bring him coffee when I come early, watched the exchange with eyebrows that tried to be neutral. I said, okay. I said I wish them well. Then I went back to the kitchen and checked the trays because moving my hands is the only way to keep my voice from cracking in public. That night I texted both of them that I would not be speaking to either for a while. I told Jenna I would send a time to collect her hoodie and books from my place. I told Tyler I would not be at family dinner on Sunday. I put my phone on the charger and sat on the floor beside it because standing felt like a test I would fail. The next morning, my mum called. She said, love is complicated. She said I needed to be the bigger man. She said it would be cruel to break up the family over a relationship. I said I did not break anything. I said I will not sit across a table from my brother while he holds my ex-girlfriend's hand. She said I was selfish to make a scene. I said I was not going. She said if I cared about family, I would show up. I stared at my prep list and pictured Tyler laughing Jenna adding salt to the soup without tasting it, and my mom passing rolls like we were in a holiday commercial. I did not go to dinner. Instead, I worked on a corporate lunch order for Monday and rewrote my prep list 3 times because my hands would not stop shaking. My sous chef, Marco, asked if I wanted him to take the knives for a while. I let him. He chopped onions while I answered emails, and the sound of the blade on the board steadied me in a way I did not expect. Aunt Carol posted a status about how forgiveness is good for the heart and tagged my mom and Tyler. Cousins liked it. My dad texted me a thumbs up and then a short line, "Proud of you," which is what he sends when he does not know how to pick between his sons and is trying to pick me anyway. Jenna texted me that she wanted closure. She said she hoped we could all be friends eventually. I typed that I need a clean break. I deleted it and wrote, "I will leave your things with Marco at the kitchen door on Tuesday between 5 and 6. She wrote back, "So cold," which sat on my screen like a challenge I am supposed to accept. I have replayed the bar scene for 2 weeks in my head, trying to find the moment where I could have been more graceful. I can see the version where I make a speech about wishing them joy, and then I mop a floor for 3 hours. I can also see the version where I say nothing and wake up in a year with both of them at my Sunday table because I chose not to make a clear boundary. My mum keeps calling, asking me to come to dinner. She says family first, as if I have not spent years putting out chairs for family when Tyler blew in late and left early. I keep thinking about how my business runs smoothly when the back of house and front of house have clear lanes, when people stay out of the service area unless they are on the schedule, when the tip jar stays on the counter where it belongs. When a person wants to chat, they wait until we are off the clock. My life has not had those lanes. I think I need to set them now, even if it makes me look dramatic to people who prefer mess. I have told my mum that I am not attending family events where Tyler and Jenna are a couple. I have told my brother I do not want contact. I have told Jenna where to pick up her things and that I will not be inside when she comes. I feel both firm and shaky. I am not sure if I am punishing people for falling in love or if I am protecting myself from being turned into the person who cooks and smiles while they hold hands next to my stove. Am I the jerk for refusing to forgive my brother for dating my girlfriend and for skipping family dinner? Comment 1. Not the jerk. Your boundary is basic fairness. Siblings do not date each other's partners. Skipping dinner is the minimum. Keep no contact and do not engage in group guilt. Comment 2. Not the jerk. Also, inform any market or event where you vend that you are dealing with a personal situation. Ask for a note on your vendor profile to contact security if your brother tries to enter your service area. Protect your business. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who told me I was not required to perform grace while my brother tried to turn my life into his set. I read your comments late at night at the prep table with the exhaust fan humming, which is my version of white noise. I feel steadier on some steps and shaky on others. I am trying to write this in the same tone I would use to teach a new line cook a recipe. Clear, specific, without apologizing for the instructions. The family turned the volume up fast. Aunt Carol started a group text with me, my mum, and Tyler that began with a link to a couples counselor who also advertises sibling sessions. She wrote that forgiveness is a skill and that we could learn it together. Mom replied that the counselor is a friend of a friend and would make room for us this week. Tyler chimed in with a heart emoji and said he was open to healing. I stared at my phone and felt the old tilt behind my eyes that happens when people decide a story before asking the person who has to live it. I typed, "Thank you for the suggestion, but I do not want joint counseling. I am not interested in processing my ex-girlfriend and my brother as a couple. I need space." Aunt Carol replied with 3 paragraphs that boiled down to hurt people, and that a family without forgiveness turns brittle. Tyler sent a selfie from Jenna's couch with a caption about working on vulnerability. It took my breath for a second, in the way grief does when you think you have already cried enough. Mom pivoted. If I would not talk about feelings, I could at least be practical. She said Tyler needed shifts and that helping at my Saturday market stall would keep him busy. She framed it as good for the business too, because he is good with people. She said I could put him on the register while I griddled, and that this would show we are a united family. I pictured Tyler at the front, Jenna lingering near the condiment caddies, and my regulars trying to decide whether to smile or tiptoe. My stomach knotted. I wrote back, "I will not be placing Tyler at my stall. He is not on my team. We are not working together." Mom called me immediately. She said I was making this harder than it had to be. She said surely I could put him on a corner task, like handing out napkins. She said if I cared about family, I would try. I said I care about my staff and my customers and the health department. I said the service area is not a place for experiments. She sighed in the way that means I have failed a test she believes I was given at birth. Tyler texted me privately to say he would be the bigger man and come support my stall as a customer. He added a winky face. I read the words twice and felt my hands go colder than the walk-in. Jenna followed with a message about wanting to show there is no bad blood. She suggested that if we all showed we could be friends, the family would settle down. I wrote, "Do not come to my events. I need space. I do not want to see you." She replied that I sounded dramatic. Tyler wrote that I sounded scared. This is the part where I am grateful for my sous chef Marco and my server Alina, who have worked enough crowded pop-ups to know the difference between a busy day and a day that could spin. Marco said we should email the market organizer with a heads up. He said to use clear language about a personal boundary and a request for support if a man named Tyler tries to enter the service area. He said that organizers like concise notes they can save to vendor profiles. Alina said she would run the front if things got weird, and that she would hold the line with a smile if anyone tried to lean past the sneeze guard. I drafted an email to the market coordinator. I kept it short. I said, "I have a personal situation involving a family member who may try to enter my service area. He is not part of my staff and must not cross the counter line. If he appears, I will signal security and ask for removal." I added his name and a simple description. I attached my vendor insurance in case they needed to flag the file. The coordinator replied within an hour that they had added a note and would brief security. The calm language made me feel like a person with a plan instead of a person bracing for a scene. The group text from Aunt Carol kept churning. She sent another link about repair. She asked me to consider a family dinner with ground rules. Mom added that Nana would be devastated to see her grandsons at odds. Tyler wrote that if I refused to attend counseling, he would know my mind was closed. Jenna sent a separate note asking if we could meet for coffee so she could explain her side. I typed, "I do not need your side," and then deleted it because I am trying not to write sentences that feed the part of me that wants to argue. I wrote, "I do not want to meet. I am aware that I sound like a person stacking sandbags. It feels like that. It also feels like the first time in a long time that my sandbags might hold." I did one more practical thing. I rewrote my staff game plan for Saturday with a short script we could use if someone tried to bait us into a conversation. It says, "We are here to serve food. Please direct any non-order questions to our email." It is not clever, it is steady. I taped it inside the register drawer. There was one more push I did not expect. My mum asked me to drop off a tray of pastries at a community luncheon she helps run at the church. She said the head count had gone up. She said it would be a nice gesture. I said yes, because I have a long memory of dropping food at that kitchen and waving at people who watched me grow up. When I arrived, Tyler and Jenna were setting up a coffee station. Tyler waved like we had a standing bit and called me chef, in a tone that felt like a dare. Jenna said, "Let us show everyone we can be adults." I placed the trays where the coordinator asked and left without saying more than hello. In the parking lot, I sat with my hands on the wheel and waited for my breathing to smooth out. I told myself that saying less was a choice, not a failure to say the right thing. Dad texted that night, asking if I wanted breakfast on Tuesday. He wrote, "Just us." I said yes. The message felt like a small, solid thing in a week that has been made of noise. It reminded me that not every family member wants to see me fold. I know this is the internet, and that sometimes the audience wants a dramatic speech. All I have are lists. No joint therapy. No stall help. No surprise appearances. No coffee to explain love. Email to organizers. Script inside the register. Marco on knives if my hands shake. Alina at the front with a smile that is kind and firm. Me making empanadas with even crimps, because even crimps are a way to prove I am still myself. I have moments where I wonder if I am punishing love for being inconvenient. Then I picture Tyler behind my counter, charming my regulars, while Jenna laughs by the condiments, and I feel how my chest tightens. I am not punishing. I am protecting the place where I work for 12 hours so I can sleep at night. If my mother thinks that is selfish, then she can call it selfish. I am tired of calling it anything other than necessary. So, am I the jerk for refusing family therapy, keeping my brother out of my business space, and telling organizers to remove him if he shows up? Comment 1. Not the jerk. You handled this exactly right. Vendors who pre-brief security make events safer. Keep all requests in writing and do not let anyone cross the counter line. Your script is perfect. Comment 2. Not the jerk. Counseling is not a fix for active disrespect. You do not need to process their relationship while it is ongoing. Protect your work and your peace. Update 2. I thought the group text about counseling would be the week's peak. It was not. The pile-on widened like a spill that keeps finding new seams in the floor. Aunt Carol posted a pastel square that said, "Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself," tagged my mom and Tyler, and wrote a paragraph about how families cannot let bitterness rot the table. Cousins I have not seen in years liked it and added comments about how life is short and how grudges are a waste. No one tagged me directly. They did not need to. A family system can point without pointing. I kept my phone face down on the prep table and tried to flatten puff pastry without flattening my chest. Marco whisked eggs and counted out loud so the rhythm would cover the text buzz. Alina practiced the Saturday script, "We are here to serve food," for the 10th time and made me laugh at her radio voice. I felt like a person with a plan for small things, which is how I have to move when the big things tilt. Saturday came. The market opened with that hopeful whistle the kettle always makes when the first coffee cups hit. Regulars waved. I handed a spinach feta puff to Mr. Alvarez, who buys 2 and always tells me 1 is for his wife. even when I can see him eyeing a third. The air smelled like bread and early apples. Then a shift. Alina squeezed my elbow and nodded toward the side lane. Tyler and Jenna stood, near the stall, not in line, not far, at that exact distance that says, "We are allowed to be here." Tyler held up his phone for a selfie and angled the shot to catch my sign. Jenna tucked her hair behind her ear, in that way she knows looks good on camera. They posted it with a caption about supporting local and being adults about hard things. A cousin commented that she loved to see brothers working it out. I kept my head down and sliced a tray of empanadas. Alina stepped forward and said, in the same even tone she uses for sold-out announcements, "You are welcome to purchase, but please do not block the service area or take photos of staff without consent." Tyler laughed. Jenna said, "We are just being supportive." Alina repeated the line. I watched her from the corner of my eye, while pretending the biggest decision in my world was whether to dust the next tray with paprika or leave it plain. They moved off 5 feet and took more photos. It felt like a mosquito buzz you cannot swat without turning your arm into a performance. 10 minutes later, a new caption appeared on my screen because a customer showed it to me while paying. It said, "Let us normalize blended families," and tagged Aunt Carol. Marco quietly handed me a bottle of water and tapped the taped script inside the drawer. "We are here to serve food. Please direct any non-order questions to our email." I repeated it to a person who tried to ask if Tyler would be working the register soon. She nodded, paid, and left a tip that clinked. When the rush ended, I emailed the market coordinator a short update. "Thank you for briefing security." The individuals we discussed appeared. They hovered, they took photos, they were asked not to crowd the service area. I did not ask for removal because they did not cross the line today. I do not want to be the vendor who cries wolf. I simply want a record in case this escalates. The coordinator replied, grateful for the note, and added the email to my vendor profile. The paper trail felt like a bodyguard who does not talk. By evening, Aunt Carol had posted another square about how anger makes you sick, while forgiveness makes you glow. Tyler and Jenna added a carousel of photos from the market. One shot framed my stall sign, while blurring me out behind it. A cousin wrote, "Proud of our boys for being adults." I set my phone down and iced sheet cakes for a Sunday church order. A straight line of icing dots is a loop my hands understand. While I dotted, Marco printed screenshots and slid them into a folder. He labeled it Market Incidents, like he was filing invoices. The folder sat on the desk next to produce receipts and looked ordinary, which helped. Sunday brought a small twist. A food blogger posted a story that said I had stolen a chimichurri recipe from a local bar. The bar is one where Tyler used to bartend. The story did not name Tyler. It did not need to. The recipe claim was silly. Chimichurri is old and has as many versions as there are people with parsley. Even so, one of my corporate clients sent a nervous email asking if we were dealing with any IP issues. I replied with a photo of my prep list from a year ago showing the same proportions, which is my nerdy version of timestamps. I added a calm line about coordinated noise. The client thanked me and confirmed Monday's order. After lunch, Jenna texted me privately to say she hoped I saw that she and Tyler were trying. She wrote that she had been terrified to show her face at the market and that I should give her some credit for being brave. I typed, "Do not come to my events," then deleted it because I had already said it. I wrote, "I need distance. Please stop posting photos of my stall." She replied, "You cannot control public spaces." I did not answer. I printed the thread and put it in the folder Marco had made. The act of sliding paper into plastic calmed my pulse in a way that feels silly to admit and true anyway. Mom called during cleanup and left a voicemail that began with, "I am glad you are calming down," and ended with, "Maybe next week Tyler can help at your stall to show everyone we are a loving family." I did not call back. I wrote her an email that said, "I will not be working with Tyler. Please address any future requests about my business to email only." She replied by text anyway, with a paragraph about how Nana would be devastated. I did not respond. I iced the last sheet cake and put it in the walk-in to set. There were quiet kindnesses that made the week bearable. The market coordinator stopped by with a cup of coffee and said they had observed the hovering from a distance and appreciated that I did not escalate. A regular slipped a note into the tip jar that said, "Your food speaks for itself," with a 5 folded around it like a hug. My dad showed up at 7 in the morning on Tuesday with a thermos and helped me carry water jugs to the van. He did not mention Tyler or Jenna. He asked about the new spinach supplier and said he was proud of the even crimps on the empanadas. I carried that sentence longer than a person should. I am learning that documentation is its own kind of courage. Market email saved, screenshots labeled, vendor note, staff script taped where shaky hands can find it. None of these things are dramatic. They are boring in the best way. They make it possible for me to stand behind a table and serve food, while past and present try to place me in a different story. Thank you to the people who told me to prepare security and to write short, neutral notes. Without that advice, I might have tried to talk Tyler into acting right in a crowd, which would have turned me into a prop. I am not a prop. I am a person with a stall and a schedule and a van that smells like citrus cleaner. I will keep sending the market coordinator neat emails and keep my hands busy when my chest tries to gallop. I expect an escalation. People who enjoy scenes rarely stop at a selfie. I will keep the line bright. If they cross the counter, or grab a jar, or try to step behind the sneeze guard, I will signal security like it is any other safety issue. Not because I want spectacle, but because a service line is a boundary like any other. If my family cannot see it, the orange cone still means do not step. I will update when there is more to report. For now, I am going to restock napkins, count spoons, and bake one more tray because the weather looks good and people are happier when the puff pastry shows up on time. Comment 1. You are handling this like a pro. Keep emailing organizers after each incident and include date, time, and who was present. Ask them to keep a vendor profile note to contact security immediately if Tyler blocks the counter or enters the service area. Comment 2. Proud of you for choosing boring tools over big speeches. Screenshots, vendor notes, staff scripts, all of it adds up. You are not punishing anyone. You are running a safe stall. Update 3. The City Night Market is our biggest recurring event. Lights strung over the alley like a ceiling. Music loud enough to make knives tap in rhythm. It is where I learned to move a line with my shoulders, not just my words. I told myself that if I could keep my station clean and my hands steady, I could ride out the family noise. I put fresh tape on the counter line, ran a new extension for the heat lamp, and handed Alina the laminated script we use when people try to talk about anything but food. We are here to serve. Please direct non-order questions to our email. Marco suggested we arrive 30 minutes early to walk the footprint with security. We did. I introduced myself to the night shift lead, a woman named Tish, who wore a jacket that made her look like a lighthouse. I said I had a personal situation with a family member. I used the same short lines from the emails. Not a staff member. Not permitted behind the counter. Removal requested if the line is crossed. Tish nodded and radioed a quick note to her team. She did not ask for drama. She asked where I would stand, what my signal would be, and whether I preferred she speak first if things went sideways. It felt like someone had checked my fire extinguisher without making me feel like a person who invites flames. We opened. The first hour was smooth. Regulars, tourists who take photos of empanadas like they are museum pieces. 2 teens who told me their grandmother taught them to crimp with forks. I felt my breath drop from collarbone to belly, which is where it lives when I am not braced. Then Tyler arrived with Jenna and 2 friends I did not recognize. They came in with the air of guests of honor. Tyler wore a thrifted denim jacket. Jenna held a stack of glossy flyers. They did not line up. They hovered to the left of the counter, within arm's length of customers who were deciding between spinach feta and mushroom leek. One of the friends said, loud enough for my line, that my food was fine, but stolen. Tyler laughed and held a flyer up, a sheet that said, local vendor steals recipes and claims them as his own, with a blurry photo of chimichurri from someone's phone and a paragraph about how I learned everything I know from a neighborhood bar. It was the same idea as the food blogger post, now in paper form, portable and handable to my customers. Alina stepped forward to her mark. You are welcome to purchase. Do not block the service area. Please do not distribute materials that disrupt the line. She said it with a voice I have heard her use on windy days when napkins try to fly. Tyler grinned and said, we are supporting the market, like a person saying he has a receipt. Jenna told a customer she could get the original recipe at the bar on Tuesdays if she asked nicely. The customer raised her eyebrows and slid a tip into the jar with a motion I read as sympathetic. I looked at Marco. He looked at me. We did not speak because service time is not for speeches. I raised my hand in the signal Tish, and I agreed on. She was at my side within a minute, posture that looked like calm math. You cannot distribute materials in vendor aisles, she said. You must stand beyond the marked line if you're not in the queue. Tyler complained he was being targeted. Jenna said this was a public space. Tish repeated the line, simple and even, and pointed at the tape. The group shuffled back 3 feet, then 2 more, then just enough to pretend compliance. The heckling didn't stop. It turned into a drip. He's scared, Tyler said, stage whispering to his friends. He knows I taught him everything, one friend added. Jenna laughed and told someone loudly that I was cold, a word she likes for the way it lets her accuse and look gentle at the same time. It is not illegal to be loud. It is poisonous to a line that moves on rhythm. I cut smaller portions to speed service and kept my chin where it belongs, parallel to the cutting board. Then the physical moment I had prepared for, but hoped not to meet. A man asked for 2 empanadas and a side of slaw. Alina reached for a tray. Tyler swatted the edge of our chalkboard sign with the back of his hand as he pivoted, a movement that could be called careless if you were feeling generous and calculated if you had watched him refuse to own momentum for 20 years. The sign wobbled and clipped the tray. 1 empanada slid. Marco caught it with a paper boat. A small gasp went up, the kind crowds make when a toddler almost falls. My hand went up again, not for Tish now, but for the second security guard already moving. Final warning, Tish said. Do not touch vendor property. Do not obstruct service, Tyler played wounded. Wow, over a sign, he said, palms up. Jenna pulled a who-me face. The friend folded the flyers like a magician hiding cards. Tish asked me if I wanted them removed now or if I wanted to make a note and escalate later. I looked at the clock. I looked at the line. I looked at my hands, which were steady enough to fold 2 empanadas without ripping the dough. Document and warn, I said. Tish nodded and spoke into her radio in language that sounded like a list. I served the next 3 customers and made sure my voice sounded like turmeric and butter, not like a person whose jaw wanted to crack. They backed off after that. The flyers migrated to a trash can. The group drifted to the bar area. They took a new set of photos with the Ferris wheel in the background. The air settled. We sold out of spinach feta by 9:30, and I felt the kind of relief you feel after a storm that was predicted, but still rattles the window. When the closing bell rang, I asked for a copy of the incident report. Tish had already written it, time-stamped, with names, a description of the flyer, the sign swat, and her verbal warning. She handed me a carbon copy. I emailed it to the night market manager before I left the parking lot, attaching our previous notes. This is an ongoing pattern, I wrote. Thank you for your team's help. We will not tolerate further interference. The manager replied with a promise to flag the names and to consider a formal notice if there was one more incident. I felt that click again, the small internal lock I have come to trust more than speeches. At home, there was a text pile. Aunt Carol posted a story about how I was agitated at the night market and how my anger made customers uncomfortable. Cousins liked it. Mum called twice. I let it ring. I sent one email to Mom that said, "Do not discuss my events online. Any contact about family matters should be by email. I did not add a paragraph about love. I am practicing leaving space where a speech used to go." The next morning, I did the things that make a Monday a Monday. I scrubbed sheet pans, tallied costs, wrote the prep list for a corporate delivery. Dad dropped off a bag of limes because he heard I was low. He said, he looked like a fool, which is the closest my father comes to taking a side with words. I sliced a lime so he could smell the oil on the air, a small ritual we have that holds more than it looks like it can hold. I am tired of being told to be an adult by people who behave like they are auditioning for a viral clip. Being an adult for me is filing an incident report and serving the next person a hot empanada without the story bleeding into the food. It is asking security to speak first and giving someone a last chance, because you have to build records in layers. It is knowing that the market's no soliciting rule is a better shield than a clever comeback. It is making sure your chalkboard sign is weighted at the base and that your staff knows where to stand when wind or brothers blow too close. I do not pretend this is over. People who like the edge of the line often tug it twice before they slip. The next event is a charity cook-off with a bigger crowd and a narrower aisle. I sent the organizers the night market report and asked for an advanced security brief. They thanked me for the heads up and put my stall on a corner so the counter line could be wider. The map looks like hope to me. It also looks like room to move if someone decides to reach. I will update after the cook-off. For now, I am going to rest my hands and set out the tape I will lay down in the morning. The straightness of a line is not the only thing that keeps people honest, but it helps. Comment 1. This is exactly how we want vendors to handle it. Pre-brief, clear signal, accept a documented warning first so we have grounds for removal next time. Send the incident number to the cook-off organizers and ask for a preemptive trespass note on file. Comment 2. Proud of how you protected service without feeding the spectacle. Lock your sign base, keep copies of flyers, and bring extra tape. You are running a kitchen, not a stage. Update 4. The charity cook-off is the kind of event I love. Local vendors, a kids' craft table, a choir that sings near the fountain, and the kind of crowd that cheers when a teenager nails a trumpet solo. My stall was on a corner this time, per the organizer's plan to keep my counterline wide. I taped a clean border, double-weighted the chalkboard sign, and briefed my team. Marco on grill and plating, Alina on front and change, me floating, tasting, and running trays. We reviewed our short script. We are here to serve food. Please direct non-order questions to our email. Security had my note and the night market incident number. The lead, a man named Terence, with the posture of a metronome, walked the path with me at setup. He pointed to 2 camera poles and said, "If someone reaches, we will have it." The first hour was smooth as a parade. Teachers tried our chimichurri and told me they were team parsley. A toddler danced by our tip jar. The choir sang a hymn that made even the grill smoke seem polite. I let myself breathe from the belly and not the collarbone. Then the tilt. Tyler and Jenna arrived with 2 of the same friends from the night market and 1 new face who filmed everything. They were not subtle. Tyler wore a bright jacket. Jenna had a ring of keys at her belt that jingled when she walked. They hovered at the edge of the queue and then slid along the counter like people looking for their mark. Alina stepped forward, palm open, voice even. "You are welcome to purchase. Do not block the service area. Please do not film staff without consent." The new friend with the camera said, "It is a public event," and kept filming. Alina repeated the line. People in line looked down at their shoes, the way crowds do when they are trying to give you privacy without knowing how. Tyler started with words. "He stole our recipes," he told a man waiting for 2 empanada plates. Jenna added, "We are here to support local and show there is no bad blood," while angling her shoulder so the camera could catch her profile. My jaw went tight, which is my personal warning light. I caught Terence's eye and gave the agreed signal. He moved in with a second guard, calm and neat. "You cannot obstruct," he said. "You cannot film staff. You must clear the service line or purchase and move along." Then the physical moment that turns a scene into a report. A teen set a 5 in the tip jar. Tyler laughed, reached across the counter like a man teasing a cat, and spun the jar by its rim. It wobbled and lifted an inch. Coins clattered. Alina's face went still in the way it does when someone tips a drink toward the edge of the table. Marco's hand tightened on the tong handle. I felt the heat in my ears that means I am leaving rational ground. I stepped in closer to the line and said, loud enough for the camera, "Do not touch vendor property. Step away from the counter." Now Terence spoke over my shoulder with the voice of a person who files reports for a living. "You have been warned. You are not permitted to interfere with a food vendor. Leave the service area immediately." Tyler smiled like he was in on a joke. He held the jar for 1 second longer than a person who did not want a reaction would. Then he let go. Terence radioed, "Please advise," repeated interference, requesting police presence for removal and trespass. The words landed like chalk marks on pavement. The officers arrived faster than my brain wanted. 2 uniforms, measured steps, hands visible. They separated the cluster by name. Terence gave a tight summary and handed over the prior incident number. I spoke in short sentences because I have learned that short sentences holed in other people's pens. They have hovered at multiple events. They were warned not to obstruct. He touched the tip jar and spun it. It is not safe to reach over a food counter. Jenna tried to talk over me with lines about bravery and blended families. An officer held up a palm and asked her to wait. The officers took down names, asked if I wanted to press charges for attempted theft, and explained the venue's rules about interference with vendors. I said I wanted the interference documented and I wanted them removed today. I did not want to escalate beyond trespass unless they crossed a clearer line. The officer nodded, conferred with Terence, and issued a trespass warning that barred Tyler from the grounds for the remainder of the event, with a note about escalation if he returned. The camera friend asked if this was necessary. The officer said, yes. Tyler started a speech about brothers and forgiveness. The officer cut it with, "This is not a family court. Move along." It was not harsh. It was precise. They were escorted out along the outer path. People at my line exhaled. A woman near the front said, "We are so sorry." In that way, crowds sometimes apologize for other people. Alina steadied the tip jar, checked the coins, and set it back with both hands, like a ritual. Marco plated 2 empanadas as if nothing had happened and slid them under the heat lamp with his usual neatness. I announced the next order and felt my voice land without the tremor I had expected. Within 20 minutes, the narrative machine started up online. Aunt Carol posted that I had called the police on my own blood. Mom texted that I had humiliated the family in public and that Nana would be devastated. A cousin posted a cut clip that made it look like Tyler was merely standing near the jar when officers arrived. I did not reply to any of it. I sent one email to my mother and aunt. Please stop posting about me or my events. All communication about family matters should be by email. Any in-person interference will be reported to event security and police. Then I sent the incident number and summary to the cook-off organizers for their records and thanked Terence's team in writing. Paper first, feelings after. There is a version of this update where I apologize for involving the police. I will not write that version. Food service is a safety environment. Counters and jars and hot pans are not props for a sibling's audition. I did not escalate a family dispute. I enforced the rules of a public event after repeated warnings. If that sounds like a speech, it is because I spent years believing I was dramatic for wanting a clear line. The line is literal tape on concrete. It prevents burns and broken jars. It also keeps the story from turning me into the person who cooks while someone plays chaos beside my grill. The organizers sent a follow-up the next day. Tyler is on a do not admit list for their events for 1 year. Any attempt to return will trigger immediate removal. They also added a general reminder to vendors and guests in the next newsletter about not filming staff without consent. The email was bland and perfect. Dad came by the next morning with a bag of oranges and said, "You sounded like a grown man on that video," which is wild because I did not know he had seen any clip. He did not offer advice. He handed me an orange, I peeled it, we stood in the doorway, and the world felt quiet in the way kitchens do when ovens are off. I am sure the family pressure will keep trying to fold me into a circle where everyone smiles while pretending not to hear the clink of a jar. I will keep choosing straight lines. I will keep emailing organizers before events. I will keep using short scripts. I will keep my hands busy when my chest wants to sprint. I will also keep telling myself that asking an officer to enforce a boundary at a crowded event is not a moral failure. It is what you do to keep a service space safe. I will update with the aftermath and any vendor policies that come out of this. For now, I am going to prep chimichurri, label the squeeze bottles, and put the tip jar behind the register when the line gets thick. Boring tools, calm hands, straight tape. Comment 1. You acted correctly. Repeated interference, plus contact with vendor property at a food stall, warrants removal and a trespass warning. Documenting and emailing organizers was key. Keep your scripts and requests in writing. Comment 2. You called the police on your own brother over a tip jar. That is extreme. Family should talk, not criminalize each other in public. OP replies, I hear that it looks harsh out of context. This was after repeated warnings, flyers, heckling, and a prior incident. Food counters are safety zones with hot surfaces and cash. I used event rules to protect staff and customers, not to make a scene. Update 5. The morning after the charity cook-off, my phone buzzed like a trapped fly. Aunt Carol posted that I criminalized brotherly love. She paired it with a pastel square that said, "Forgiveness frees the heart." Cousins I have not spoken to in years liked it and added comments about how life is short and how calling the police on family is a stain you never wash out. Mum left me a voicemail that began with how Nana would be heartbroken and ended with how I must apologize publicly or be cut off from holidays. Tyler posted a story of himself looking sad in a car. Jenna filmed a slow pan of the festival banner with a caption about courage. None of them mentioned the jar or the previous warnings. They did not need to. A story told, loud enough, makes details optional. I did what I have been practicing. I did not reply to posts. I wrote one email to my mother and aunt reiterating that all contact must be by email, that any discussion of my events online must stop, and that any in-person interference would be documented. Then I put the phone in the drawer and went to the kitchen. Marco had already set up cutting boards like a chessboard. Alina labeled squeeze bottles for chimichurri and garlic yogurt in block letters you could read from across a crowd. Routine is a rope you can hold when a room tilts. I met with the charity organizers in the afternoon. They thanked me for staying calm and for sending the incident number so promptly. They added Tyler to a 1-year do not admit list and circulated a vendor memo about zero tolerance for interference with stalls, filming staff without consent, and touching vendor property. Terrence, the security lead, proposed a simple physical fix for my setup. He suggested a waist-high barrier rail that attaches to my counterposts to prevent reaching. He even showed me a sketch from another market where a vendor had done the same. It looked unremarkable and perfect. I ordered the hardware that night. There was fallout I had not planned for. A food blogger posted a cropped video that showed officers near my stall with a caption that framed me as dramatic. The comments filled with people who had not been there and still felt informed. One of my corporate clients forwarded it with a nervous emoji. I replied with the organizer's memo, the incident number, and a calm summary of the trespass warning. The client wrote back, "Thanks for the clarity," and confirmed next month's order. Vendors like paper. I am grateful I learned that. The family doubled down by group text. Aunt Carol invited everyone to a healing potluck at her house with a plan to pass around a talking spoon. Mom said attendance was mandatory. Tyler chimed in that he would be there with love and a tray of bar nachos he knew I liked. Jenna added a heart. I typed and erased 4 drafts before sending a single line. I will not attend. Please do not invite me to group events with Tyler and Jenna. If you show up at my stall again, security will remove you. It felt like walking a beam. Then I set the phone down and weighed flour. Dad knocked on the kitchen door at closing with a bag of limes and 2 cans of seltzer. He said he had seen the cropped video because he is not a monk, but that the uncut clip made it clear who crossed the line. He did not offer advice. He asked if I needed help carrying water jugs for Saturday's market. I said yes. He said the empanadas looked good with the new crimps. I carried that sentence through cleanup like a warm brick. I formalized some changes for the stall. First, we moved the tip jar behind the register during peak times and added a second jar that Alina slides forward only when the line thins. Second, we installed the barrier rail. It looks like a miniature fence. Children like to run their hands along it. Adults understand its purpose with one glance. Third, I created a brief staff protocol for disruptions. One person serves, one person signals, one person documents. The last change was stubborn and simple. I made extra copies of the laminated script and taped one on the inside of the chalkboard so I would see it when I lifted the sign. We are here to serve food. Please direct non-order questions to our email. The sentences are not brave. They are steady. The next market came with a little anxiety and a lot of sun. We ran the new setup. The barrier did its job. 2 teens tried to lean in for a photo and bounced off with a laugh. A regular told me the rail made the line feel tidier. No relatives appeared. Tish, the night market lead, swung by on her break and gave me a thumbs up. The calm felt almost daily. That is the word I keep chasing. Daily. Online, Aunt Carol pivoted from forgiveness squares to subtweets about vendors who weaponize rules. A cousin reposted a clip of a different vendor arguing with a customer and implied it was me. I did not engage. I printed the posts and slid them into the folder. Marco labeled the tab social. Alina added a sticky note that said, "Resist the urge to perform." She underlined resist twice. I kept seeing her tidy lines in my head when my thumb tried to open apps. A few quiet good things happened that I want to note so they do not get lost under the mess. A teacher who had watched the cook-off incident returned with her daughter and said she admired how we handled a public scene without feeding it. She bought 4 puffs and tipped in that discreet way that feels like respect. The market coordinator sent a private thank you and said other vendors had asked for copies of our script to use at their stalls. A nearby cafe owner told me their staff meeting included a talk about not filming other workers without consent. These are small, unglamorous wins. They are the kind that add up to a place you want to work. Mom cooled to room temperature. She still sends group texts about potlucks and pretends not to see my number. When I reply by email with the same boundary sentence, she ignores the format and calls anyway. I let it ring. Dad texts me breakfast plans and shows up with oranges. Tyler posted a reel about resilience. Jenna wrote a long caption about being misunderstood. None of it changed the shape of my week. That feels like progress. I know some of you worry about the optics of calling police for a boundary at a food stall. I hear that. Here is my answer, the one I will keep taped to my own mind. A food stall is a safety zone. Hot surfaces, cash, knives, and crowds do not mix well with performative conflict. I asked for help only after repeated warnings and in line with event rules. If the cost is that some relatives think I am cold, I can live with that. My staff finished their shift unshaken. My customers ate hot food without watching a jar hit the concrete. That is the job. I am tired. I am also steady. The rail is installed. The script is taped. The emails are saved. The do not admit list is in place. If the family's noise spikes again, I will do what I did last week. Signal, document, serve the next person. Boring tools, used well. I will write a final update in a few months. My goal is that it reads less like a defense and more like a menu. Comment 1. This is a case study in doing it right. Physical barrier, tip jar behind register during peak, pre-briefed security, documented incident numbers, and a neutral script. You protected staff and customers and gave organizers what they need to back you up. Comment 2. I was in line at the cook-off. You handled it calmly. The barrier looks great and the food tasted the same as always. Keep your boundaries. We will keep showing up hungry. Final update. 9 months is long enough for routines to turn back into routines. It is also long enough for a public scene to become paperwork, a policy, and then a story that new vendors hear in orientation. I promised a final update when the dust stopped trying to act like weather. It has. Business first. The stall feels like itself again. We added a weekday corporate lunch route and a small weekend brunch pop-up with a shorter menu. Marco runs grill with the same steady hands that caught a flying empanada. Alina now trains our new front crew on scripts and de-escalation. The barrier rail lives in the van. We set it up at every event, even quiet ones. Tip jars sit behind the register at peak, then slide forward when the line thins. I have a binder with incident numbers in one tab and organizer emails in another. It looks boring. It is my favorite tool. Event rules changed in small ways that matter. The night market added a line to vendor contracts about filming staff only with consent. The charity cook-off sent a newsletter explaining that interfering with a stall or touching vendor property will trigger removal. People read those sentences, shrug, and then stand in line to eat. That is the ideal outcome. The best policy is the one that disappears behind food and music. Family is different, but not dramatic. My mother stopped posting forgiveness memes. She still pushes for holiday attendance. I keep replying by email with the same boundary sentence and let calls roll to voicemail. Aunt Carol moved on to inspirational quotes about gardening. Cousins drifted back to their own lives. Dad and I meet for breakfast every other Tuesday at a diner with a cook who salts eggs properly. He brings oranges or limes when he swings by the kitchen. He uses his words sparingly. They land anyway. Tyler tried to show up once at a small weekday market after the trespass warning expired. Security asked him to move along based on organizer notes. He went quiet online for a stretch and then posted a reel about resilience. He and Jenna are still together. They look like people who are always on the edge of a project. He lost a bar gig after the cook-off video circulated in staff chat. He tells people, I ruined his chances. I have learned to let other people hold their stories. I still keep my own folder. There were a few administrative ripples from the police call. The officers finalized a report that I filed away. The market coded the incident as a safety interference and shared that code with sister events. The cook-off gave me a small vendor credit toward next year as a thank you for staying calm. I accepted it because I run budgets like I run lines, one little box checked at a time. I was worried that calling police would brand me as a person who escalates. That did not happen. What happened is that organizers and vendors started planning. The night market offered a 5-minute huddle slot before opening for any vendor who wants to point out a concern. I do the huddle once per month. Tish, the security lead, calls it a weather report. We nod, run tape, and open on time. It turns out structure is not cold. It is care you can touch. There has been quiet kindness from customers that does not look like a movie, but feels like actual life. A teacher from the cook-off wrote a short note that said she admired how the stall did not become a stage. She tucked the note under the rail with a tip. A teenager who watched the police step in asked about working front on weekends because she liked how Alina handled a loud moment with a steady voice. Alina hired her and taught her our one line. We are here to serve food. Please direct non-order questions to our email. The teen says it like a promise. I am dating again. Not in a storyline way, coffee after service. A walk that ended with a polite hug. A second date with someone who asked good questions about pastry dough and none about my brother. I told her I keep a first aid kit in my apron. She said that was attractive in its own odd way. I laughed like a person who has slept through the night. I went back and watched the full cook-off video once, start to finish, with the sound low. I looked at my posture and my hands. I expected to see a man performing calm. I saw a vendor protecting a line and then serving the next plate. That felt like closure, not triumph, just the end of a story where a boundary did what a boundary is supposed to do. It kept people safe, and it kept the person who drew it from becoming someone he did not recognize. Mum still thinks time will bring a holiday photo with both sons and a tray of bar nachos in the frame. Maybe time will bring something quieter. For now, I show up where people expect me to show up. At the van at dawn. At a folding table with a roll of tape. At a diner booth with my dad, who warms his hands on a mug and takes an extra orange to leave on my prep table. It is not the photo my mother wants. It is the chapter I can live inside without bracing. I have made peace with the truth that forgiveness is not a stage cue. It is a private decision that does not require me to stand behind a counter while my brother waves at the camera. I do not wish Tyler harm. I do not wish Jenna harm. I wish them a life that does not pass through my service area. That is not bitter. It is practical. If you have been reading since the first post, you watched me learn how to turn feelings into policies. You nudged me toward emails and away from speeches. You said to bring boring tools. I did. The outcome looks like a menu that reads the same every week. Empanadas, spinach feta puff, chimichurri I can make with my eyes closed and still taste for salt. A tip jar that clinks. A barrier that makes sense to a child's hand. A staff that knows where to stand when wind or brothers blow. Quiet, daily, enough. Thank you for giving me a place to practice short sentences. Thank you for every vendor who said, document it. Thank you to the strangers who reminded me that the line in tape is not just about food. It is about what kind of person I am when people try to pull me sideways. I am done being pulled. I am going to clean the flat top, write tomorrow's prep list, and sleep.